podcast. Today I have with me Andrew Lees. Andrew is the founder of Stoke Strategies, a consulting service focused on helping people develop and launch their products. Thank you for joining me today.
Thanks, Roman. Yeah, I really appreciate the opportunity to be on your show today.
My pleasure. So tell me a little bit about your journey. How did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, so I think kind of like any entrepreneur, it's been kind of a roller coaster, and so, like I started really before college. I always wanted to. I was always interested in fixing things and taking things apart and putting them back together. And so I had, and my grandfather was an engineer. So between those two things, I had an idea that I wanted to be some like an inventor. Basically, that's what I wanted to be in life. I wanted to invent things, and getting wealthy from that would have been awesome too. That was that was part of the goal. But I didn't. So I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do in college. How did I take that? How did I couldn't get a degree in being an inventor, right? So um, I ended up being a mechanical engineer. I got a degree in that. And I thought maybe for a while I wanted to get into aerospace engineering. I wanted to work for a big company like Boeing or Lockheed or SpaceX. I was kind of in its infancy at that time, but I thought maybe that's what I wanted to do after a few years of college. So I kind of got off track of the whole developing things and inventing things. And after college, I got a job that wasn't in aerospace. I was working for a really big company in New Jersey, and and I really didn't like it at all. I really I really kind of hated it from day one. And one of the things that I didn't like about it, which is a major part of it, was just how big it was. You could just get lost, and I think some people like that. They kind of like to get lost in the shuffle, and that's okay because they can take home a paycheck and they just retire in 30, 40 years and like they're good. But for me, that just wasn't working. I needed potential. I needed the excitement of starting something, of having more earning potential, of doing my own thing, of calling my own shots, and really also doing something that I love to do. So I quit that job and I started working for a product development engineering company outside of Philadelphia. And that's where everything kind of clicked. I mean, that's where I realized that, yeah, I really love designing products for people, especially designing products for other inventors. But then to take it a step further, I wanted to do that myself. I always had that inclination. So I started come up with a few different ideas for different products, and I started fleshing them out and designing them and prototyping and testing them, and couldn't really find anything that I was really going to be passionate about, that I thought was that I could actually bootstrap and start a business out of by myself without too much outside help. And so one day I surf, skate, and snowboard, and I've got a bunch of boards lying around, and I realized that I wanted to hang them up. They were just sort of all over the place. So I looked around, couldn't really find anything online that was halfway decent looking. A lot of metal, a lot of foam and plastic, and just kind of real junky racks out there. A lot of options, but just nothing really all that nice. So I decided, hey, maybe I can just build my own. I can make it kind of cool and interesting. And so I got a jigsaw and a piece of wood, and I came up with a design first, and then I just and built a template, and then just used a jigsaw. And I made my first rack, which would be the start of one of the companies that I own now and still operate, called Grass Racks. We make bamboo um, racks for board, like display racks you hang up on your wall for boards, bikes, and skis. And so that was my first, that was like my intro into product, into launching my own product instead of just developing. So and then from there I I wanted to keep developing products for other people, and I liked having that mix of like owning a product business and also a service business. So I started my own consulting firm called Stoke Ventures. I develop products for other people, and then recently, within the last year, I started a new service that called Stoke Strategies, where I help people kind of figure out how to get from point A to point B with their invention. So it's not really good enough to just give them a design for a product and say, "Hey, here you go, have fun, good luck," because a lot of people didn't really know where to go. What do I do with this? How do I monetize it? How do I price it? How do I package and fulfill it and deal with customer service and figure out marketing, all this stuff. So that's when I decided to help people with that and put together a game plan. So I'm not doing the day-to-day marketing for them. I might recommend another company who's good at that, or might recommend that they do that themselves. But I'm kind of putting the roadmap together for them so they know how to go from point A to point B. So that's kind of that's kind of from start to finish, sort of in real quick.
Yeah, and touching on, you working for another big company, I think I often say that complacency is the death of innovation. It kind of kills you inside. So like you
Hmm.
said, it's all
Yeah,
right for people, traditionally kind of that traditional mindset, go to college, work for one company for, 20, 30 years, 40 years, and then retire.
yeah,
That's cool, but like I would feel, working for other corporations in the past and stuff like that, like you said, you get lost in the mix, you become comfortable, it's like a
yeah.
paycheck, there's no really, I mean, there's innovation on some levels, but depending on the company that you work for. So a lot of the stuff,
Hmm.
you slip through the cracks, you start like being complacent in terms of your job. And, some people don't take themselves out of that situation because they're fine with it. But me personally, I need to be kind of challenged, or, I kind of slip in terms of just being uh, in better words, complacent and just comfortable.
Yeah.
Like I always try to be uncomfortable. Even today, I mean, it snowed. I was shoveling snow in shorts and a t-shirt
Oh
just to
man,
like
what?
throw myself off. I mean,
Get the blood
technically, that
flowing.
yeah, that cold is good in terms of for your immune system and stuff like that, and just
Yeah.
mental clarity. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it for everyone.
Yeah.
I'm originally from Eastern Europe, so I'll account some of that tolerance to that. But
Yeah.
everything I do, I try not to be complacent in.
Yeah. Are you doing the Wim Hof breathing thing, and so you can be out in the cold for like hours at a time and all that? Have you heard of that?
Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen sitting in just like the glacial water or just
Yeah.
like ice water, and then just developing a tolerance. I'm not that extreme.
Yeah, that's
I sh
another level.
Yeah, I don't necessarily want to take it to that level, but yeah, like
Yeah.
anything in business or ideas with this podcast. I mean, if I was to go back, I would have started this podcast maybe 5, 6 years prior, but it was one of those things in the back of my mind where it was like, I don't know really how to edit audio or the audio engineering or in terms of syndicating it or how I'm going to promote it or this, that, or the other or equipment. And
Yeah.
once jumping into it, you kind of figure it out. And if you become passionate in it, or if it's a passion to begin with, you're going to run with it and, make something happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think the most important thing is just getting started, and just I was it's funny that you mentioned being uncomfortable, because I was actually just thinking about that this morning. I was working on reverse engineering a couple of parts for somebody, and it's the most tedious thing I've done, I think, in the last year at least. And I was just thinking, man, nothing good comes out of being comfortable. You really, when you're uncomfortable, you're making progress. You're challenging yourself to take it a little bit further. And if you can, just better yourself even just a fraction of a percent every day over 365 days, 1 year, it could be massive. Just 1% would be a huge, massive increase. So yeah, you're right. And that growth a lot of times happens when you're put yourself in an uncomfortable position. Not like it has to be painful all the time, but just challenging a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. I like to have kind of that contender mindset. So it's nice to be one, but I feel like you get comfortable at one and
Yeah,
everybody's
yeah,
kind of gunning for you. If you're number two, you're consistently going to have that hunger to, achieve what that first position may have not, continued with, because eventually
yeah,
anything in terms of sports or a company, if you look at the Fortune 500 list, 10, 20, 30 years ago, a lot of those companies aren't on it because they got too comfortable. They refused to
yeah.
innovate. They didn't care about, technology changes. They thought they dominated the market and they'll always dominate the market. And that's kind of that mindset gets you to slip a little bit.
Absolutely. Yep.
So, what motivates you to succeed? Obviously, those motivations may have changed over time, but what currently motivates you to succeed?
Um, a lot of things, I think, but let me see. I mean, I think the most important thing for me is knowing how good it feels to have some kind of success, even if it's a small win. Um, and I think that gets me through, each hour of working and each day, where especially when it is kind of painful and I'm really not feeling like working, or kind of getting something done, or if it feels like I'm really lost in the weeds and I'm not getting anywhere with it. I just try and remember what it feels like to to get on the other side of that and to get that victory, and how good that is. And then I'm definitely I'm motivated by two things, and like two big things besides that. One is to make an impact in the world, and make a positive impact in the world, and the bigger the better, really. And then to have like real financial freedom. And I work for myself, and I'm able to work from home, and that's all awesome. But there's different levels of financial freedom, and so the money definitely motivates me too. I think, and I think like a lot of times, sometimes people are sort of afraid to say that that's part of their motivation because they have to be altruistic or something. But I think it's really important to say no, money is a big part of it, and that's like healthy. So
Yeah, I agree. And I think even if you're driven to obviously leave an impact, or like you consider yourself a heart-led entrepreneur, or you want to do the most good as possible, if you want to think about it in terms of success, obviously usually success equals to, higher compensation, more revenue, that kind of thing. And if you have
yeah,
more financial freedom and more finances, the level of good that you can do is exponentially higher because you can scale that on a
yep.
global level. So
Yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree. Yeah.
So, what's one thing that you may have seen as a weakness in yourself in the past that you've turned around and utilized as a strength today?
Lack of focus is, I think, one of the things that I've struggled with over the years. And I mean, I get really excited by different things, new things. I'll be working on something. I'll be working on one thing, and I know I have to get it done. And yeah, a new idea pops into my head, and I just start. All of a sudden, I start working on it, and maybe an hour or 2 hours later, I'm like down this rabbit hole, and I've totally lost track of the thing that I was working on before that thought popped into my head. And I think that's something that I have really struggled with over the years. But I think it's a really good opportunity, because I look back at some of the things that that I did that took my focus away from what I really needed to be doing. First of all, maybe at that time I didn't know exactly what I needed to be doing. So sometimes you do have to experiment with different things. But I look back on the sort of some of that time that might have been wasted, and I think, man, that's awesome. If I just, instead of wasting that time going forward, do, even if I'm only able to, even if I only waste half that much time, so I do something that I'm able to focus more, even if it's not like 100%, I'm able to focus more, and I'm able to get more of the stuff done than I need to on a daily basis, and I'm consistent with that. Then I think the potential there is so massive. So yeah, I think, I mean, I do have a few things going on. I own a couple different businesses, And so I'm not focused on one thing all the time. I think that's kind of unrealistic sometimes, but I do think that focusing on the things that you need to get done on a daily basis and just really doing those and getting that down is super important.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a lot of noise, and when you're like passionate about what you do, like you're like a kind of a squirrel. You just
Oh
get
yeah.
lost
Yeah.
and jump from one thing to another. But like you said, I think lists for me are important. So creating kind of a to-do list for the day and the week, and then just like figuring out usually like 10 things and prioritizing in an order of importance. And some of those things where they may not be as impactful, but like you're passionate about it, it's something new, it may be like a major time suck. So you have to figure out like, okay, you want to explore that, maybe allot an hour or two, but really you need to finish these, few things in the day or the week.
hmm Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly right. And there's like, just as an example for that, right now I have a few projects that I have to finish up for clients. We're getting through the holidays with grass racks, and as a with a product company in the holidays, it gets a little bit it can get a little bit crazy. It's getting easier for us because we're putting more automation into our business, so that helps a lot. But it's a little crazy right now with work, but there's things that I really, really, really want to do, would rather be doing to help grow my business. And I'm chomping at the bit to get to that, like putting out some more content and writing and making videos. And I'm like, I can't wait to do that stuff. And I want to do that now, but I really have to, you know, restrain myself and get the things done that I like know I have to do. I can't put off anymore.
Yeah, I agree. And in terms of kind of like the clients you work with, are they like first time inventors, just inventors in general, different companies, and kind of how has, I guess, this whole global situation with the pandemic influenced that?
Yeah, most of them are inventors and first time inventors. A lot of them haven't started a business before, so that's where I think helping people build a strategy is super important, and it's something that they may not have ever really done before. They may have done a little market research, or they've dabbled in marketing, or they've heard about different things, but they don't necessarily know how to get from here to there and how to monetize something. So yeah, most of them are first time inventors, and I think with that kind of with those clients, with that client base that I have, uh, and with the pandemic, it's actually I think accelerated some people's desire to get their product to market. They've had this idea for a few years, maybe they've been rolling along with their job, and it's status quo, and it works, and they just get caught up in the day-to-day stuff, and they put that dream of starting a business and launching a product or service or whatever it is, they put that on hold. And I think for some people, the pandemic has really showed. I mean, they might have lost their job, which is it's a double-edged sword. If I've had a couple clients, they've lost their job and their income, and they've had to just stop their project midway, and sometimes that happens, and sometimes instead of stopping, people lean into it. They're like, no, I need to figure out a new revenue stream sooner than later. I can't rely on having this 9 to 5 job always that may or may not be there always, because as soon as we hit some adversity, and a lot of companies were just forced to lay off and to cut back. So I think people are kind of realizing that, like, now it's never been a better time really to be an entrepreneur. And online sales are just exploding. So I've heard that basically the next 3 years, what they were predicting before the pandemic, the next 3 years of growth has been pulled back to right now. So it's been accelerated. So within the last few months, we've basically seen um, 3 years worth of online growth, which is pretty cool, and it's just going to keep accelerating at a crazy rate, especially with big platforms like Amazon.
Yeah, I agree, and I think it's what you do with the situation. So, like you said, I've had a lot of people, inventors, authors, people that kind of, side put their projects on the side because of jobs or whatever they were dealing with in their life, and then this happened, and they had extra time, regardless of whatever the situation, layoff, fire, just extra time in general, working from home, so no commute. So they
Hmm.
really figured it out. So they could have been kind of like, okay, my situation sucks, or hey, I have this extra time, let me fast track whatever may have been a side hustle or something that I try to do, but never really materialized.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's cool. I mean, you don't want to you don't want to bet the farm on on your business. You don't want to bet everything, unless you're in your early 20s and you've got almost nothing to bet. Then it's like, all right, well, if you go back to zero, you were at zero a year ago, so it might make sense to bet everything, but um, it's not like you should put your life savings into developing a product or launching a business, but it's good to take some risk. I think it's important to invest in yourself, what is comfortable, and what if it doesn't. You also have to know, like, I mean, business is risky, and you could put whatever you put into it, you very well may not get it out, and you have to be okay with that. So but the potential is massive. It's not like, it's a lot more powerful than putting your money into the stock market that you have absolutely zero control over. If you're investing in yourself, you have 100% control over yourself. You don't have control over everything. There's going to be some roadblocks that you don't have control over, but at the end of the day, it's a what I'll bet on myself, um always, before I bet on something that I just have no control over.
Yeah, I agree. So what's one piece of advice you could leave with the audience, personal or professional?
Yeah. Personal or professionally, and with business and starting a business, I think the most important thing is starting and just getting going. We were talking about it a little bit earlier, but with you starting your podcast, you just kind of dove in head first and figured it out, and that's what you have to do. It's not going to be perfect and polished and shiny, whatever it is that you do from the beginning, and be cool with that, be okay with that. I talked to when I was out in California before all this happened. I talked with a guy. I went to a sandwich shop, which it was the grand opening of this sandwich shop that day, which was pretty cool. Amazing sandwiches, and there was a giant picture of this guy at on like the window as you were coming in. They painted this giant mural of this guy, and when I walk in, there's the guy. Like, he looks exactly like this painting outside, and I'm like, I wonder if he owns the place. So I started talking to him, and turns out he owned like 50 of these sandwich places all over California, and he was growing at like an incredible rate. His stores were just popping up all over the place pretty quickly, and I asked him what his key to success was. And he just said, it's not perfect. I'm not trying to be perfect. I'm trying to, get it done. I have to trust in the people that I hire. They're not going to be perfect. I'm not going to be perfect. And so I think that that really struck me, because I think a lot of times, myself included, we think, man, we can't launch something until it's totally dialed in and it's perfect, perfect, perfect. And really, the reality is, if you do that, it's too late. You really should get something out there and get some feedback and start testing it and improving it, because assuming you want to be in business for years or decades, maybe you've got plenty of time to fine tune it.
Yeah, I agree. I think creators, inventors, anyone, entrepreneurs, company founders, they always feel like that's their baby and they want it perfect. It's like you said, it's never going to be
Yep.
perfect, and then they waste time of not getting it into the market. So you get
Yep.
it as close as possible that it does what it needs to do. Don't overthink it and get it in the market and let the market decide. Obviously, you
Exactly.
need that feedback, and whatever the feedback's going to be, you either make it better, you pivot, you change, you go a different direction. But when you don't have that feedback, you can make a lot of assumptions, but without kind of real world situations, you can't really get it to the point where you need it to get.
Exactly. Yep.
So I really appreciate you stopping by today. Can you let the audience know how they can find you?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I really appreciate it, Roman. Thank you so much for having me on the show. It's been a blast. And yeah, people can find me at stokestrategies.com. And then if they want to learn more about the product that I sell, it's called Grass Racks, and it's Grass Racks, GRASSRACKS.com.
Awesome. Thanks again for stopping by.